Hi, my name's Joe Richardson and I'm an artist and painter, and today I'm going to be talking to you about painted paper collages. Painted paper collages are a really easy and quick and fun activity you can do at home. The technique I'm going to be showing you today is inspired by Henri Matisse, Kes Richardson, one of our UAL artists Roberta Bonfield, and one of the 1920s collage Dada artist Jean Arp. So they all use this technique. So they would paint pieces of paper like this with paint rather than using colour paper or kind of tissue paper. So they're making their own colours, and they would rearrange them to make new compositions. So that could have been of things like snails or rooms or landscapes, or they can be completely abstract and chance as well. So today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to do that. So there's some basic materials you're going to need. So we've got cartridge paper, white paper, it can be printer paper, any paper works really. Paint brushes, selection of brushes. You probably want some that are quite broad for when you're painting the paper, and maybe some finer ones for if you want to do some detail. Depends what kind of approach you want, but yeah, you're going to have paper, we've got watercolours, we've got acrylic paint, we've got brushes, we've got glue sticks, and a pair of scissors. I've got a few other things around me like pencils and oil pastels and some tissue paper, but those first few things are the main things you're going to need. So, to start, you take your cartridge paper or printer paper, whatever it is. You kind of want it to be fairly thick because it's going to have paint in, so it's going to get wet. So you want it to be able to absorb that paint. So you're going to take that and have it any size you want. I've got it at A4. I'm going to start with some watercolours because we're going to have different kinds of. I'm going to have a wide palette of paint, so we're going to go from some lighter colours, so maybe some light yellows, through some darker sort of greys and potentially browns and blacks. So what we want to do is get a range of colours that we're going to work with, because it's like preparing your palette for when you're going to be making your collage later. So at the moment we're preparing our own surfaces, preparing our own grounds, and we're going to be making our own colour choices depending on, you might have might have a painting in mind. So these are some of my previous paintings. You might have something that you want to create. So maybe it's a landscape, so you want to make lots of greens and blues for like the sea and the grass, things like that. Or maybe you just have some colours in mind that you like. So it could be just like you really like pinky, reddy, orangey tones. You want to have them all to exist in the same world. I've recently been working with a lot of pinks and yellows and kind of these quite bright colours. So I'm going to probably work with some of those because they sort of fit in with my practice, as you can see behind me. So the first step is to mix your colours. So you might want to have a palette in mind. So if you're painting something like a landscape or a face, you might have certain colours in mind. So if I was doing a landscape, I might think about greens and browns and blues, because there might be sea, stone and kind of grass and things like that. Or you might have colours in your practice that you're already interested in. So I've got kind of like sky blues and pinks and purples and things like that, and sometimes a bit of yellow that I use. So I'm probably going to lean into that kind of colour palette. But what I want to make while I'm making this colour palette is I want a light colour, a mid colour and a darker colour. So this kind of tonal sort of spectrum. So I'm going to think about that as I mix my colours. But I can have a bit of fun with this. I can make this up as I go along. So I quite like this quite hot kind of pink that I've got. So I'm going to use the watercolours first. I've got watercolour and acrylic. So now they're going to give me different results. So I'm sort of going to play around a bit here. So with the watercolours, I'm mixing the water with the watercolour in the little palette I've got here, and I'm going to just apply that directly to the paper. Now, the difference between using your own painted paper colour swatches and using something like tissue paper or these kind of paper rolls that we've got on the side, solid colour paper, is that it's going to have more of a texture. It's going to have more of your kind of artist's hand in there. So that's why Matisse was using it, because the colour, well, not only because he could mix his own colours and he would get exactly the colours, exactly the tones he wanted for the paintings, but they have a bit more kind of movement in. So you can see here that there's pink, but it's not completely flat. There's a lot of texture in there, and then you can sort of see the brush strokes, and you're going to get different results. So if I use a thinner brush, I'm going to get these sort of finer lines. So you might want to think about your subject matter as well. If you've got if you are doing a landscape landscape. It's a kind of broad, sweeping area of, I don't know, sand or dust or kind of mud or something like that. You might want to use a really thick brush, but if it's more detailed and it's like grass or something like that, you might want to use like a thinner brush. So I've got my pink, I quite like that, but that's very light. So I think I'm going to now, so I'm going to put that to one side over here. I'm going to grab another piece of paper. Now I'm going to mix about five or six, I think, colours. So that's quite light. So I'm going to take. I'm actually going to take the blue from here, and I'm going to use a bit of water because otherwise it's going to not dry. It's going to take forever to dry. But I'm going to take some blue acrylic now. It's kind of ultramarine, and I'm going to apply this. So this is a lot darker, so that's going to be one of my more lighter tones. You can already see that it's got a lot more depth. You can add a bit more paint. A lot more texture as well because the acrylic's a lot thicker than the watercolour. But I do want this to be kind of fairly smooth and solid. So at the moment I'm just going in one direction, but I could go in different directions here. So I'm going to get a lot more of a kind of texture. And again, I don't really know what I'm going to make yet. So I've been making these kind of abstract drawings of my garden and the woods that I live nearby, so I've been doing these kind of drawings of those, but I can worry about that later. So at the moment I'm just thinking about colour. So that's covered, and you know, if you water them down enough they should dry fairly quickly, so I'll put that there. So I'm just going to make a few of these swatches now. So I'm going to go for a darker tone now, so I'm going to go back to my watercolours. And I think I'm going to, that's quite a nice dark blue there. So I'm going to try and keep my colours, even though I want a darker colour, I kind of want it to have a relationship with this blue. So it's quite different to doing a normal collage where you kind of get all your, this process is quite different to doing a normal collage where you just get all your kind of images or coloured bits of paper. You're spending a bit more time kind of preparing your resources, and you know that can give you time to think. So as I'm making these, I'm starting to think, well, how can these fit together? What could I do with these different elements? Right, I think I'm going to go for something really bold. I'd like a nice strong yellow now to kind of break this up a bit. So something quite solid, but I'm going to go straight on with the paint because these have been quite watery, so I maybe want something a bit more kind of... But this will take longer to dry, so bear that in mind. So you need to think about how much time you've got when you're making these. So this you know, it's acrylic, so it will dry quicker, but it can take a little while to dry. But as you can see, compared to the one I just made, very different textures that kind of will have a relationship with each other and will create interesting contrast, hopefully, when we start to pull them together later. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. Just said earlier, it's good to wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty, or an apron, because you're going to be painting a lot. So I still feel like these colours are a little bit light, and I kind of want something a bit darker. So I'm going to go in with I've got some black poster paint here. But what I'm going to do, so that's quite runny. I'm going to mix in. I don't want it to be completely. I kind of want a bit of the, because I've been working with blues, so it's getting a bit into colour theory, something a little bit more complex in here. I kind of want a bit of blue to kind of pull those colours together. So I've got this really nice dark kind of bluey black now, really nice deep tone. I don't know if you can see, but it kind of sits a little bit better in that world. It's not, as you can see, it's not completely solid black there. It's more of a deep blue. So what I've done here is I've laid out, I've made my 5 colour swatches, and I've laid them out from how I see them, as from going from dark to light. So I've kind of got this range of colours. Now I'm going to need to let these dry, which might take 5-10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to cut them up and start thinking about shapes and making a new composition, a new painting.